Namaste, I am Srimati Siam Santoki, a member of the Arya Pratinidhi Youth Group and a teacher at Kanti Memorial Vedic School. It is my pleasure to humbly invite you to our virtual Indian Arrival Day program. We will commence our celebration by a song sung by Sri Surendra Ramata.
सारे जमाने पे मौसम सुहाने पे इस दिल दीवाने पे वीरानी सी थी चाहे आप आए बाहर आई हो सारे जमाने पे मौसम सुहाने पे इस दिल दीवाने पे वीरानी सी थी चाहे आप आपका ही था सबको इंतजार, आपका ही था सबको इंतजार, आपके लिए सब बेकरार, हवाएं घटाए फिजाए बागों में फूलों में झूलों ने ले चूम के अंदर आए अब आए बाहर सारे जमाने पे मौसम सुहाने पे इस दिल दीवाने पे वीरानी सी थी चाहे अब आए बाहर आई हो
Thank you, Sri Surendra Ramata, for that performance. We really enjoyed it. I now invite Arya Pratinidhi Sabha to chair our Indian Arrival Day program and give a brief history of the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha.
Namaste. Happy Indian Arrival Day. My name is Kumari Pavitra Balgobind Singh. I am a member of the Arya Pratinidhi Youth Group, a member of the executive, and the librarian of the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha of Trinidad. Today, as we celebrate Indian Arrival Day 2023, I would like to pay tribute to our great Maharishi Swami Dayanand Saraswati and recognize the significance of his legacy. I will now share with you the history of the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha of Trinidad, written by Pandita Jasodhara Ragvarsi. Maharishi Swami Dayanand Saraswati, founder of the Arya Samaj, appeared on the stage of Indian history at the very critical juncture. He saw the Aryan people divided. He saw them degraded. He found them slaves. He found that they had lost their soul, self-consciousness, self-confidence, and self-respect. Swami Dayanand's greatest desire then was to unite the Aryan people on a common basis of the pristine Vedic religion. His aim was to uplift them and make them free and respectable. This he achieved when, with the Vedas as the book of authority, and the Arya Samaj as his band of workers. He began his mission of reform and reconstruction. The Arya Samaj movement was founded by Swami Dayanand Saraswati on the 10th of April, 1875 in Bombay, India. The Arya Samaj was established in the first instance for the good of the country and ultimately for the whole humanity. The prime objective of this movement was doing good to the world to make physical, spiritual, and social improvement of all mankind. This movement focused a new light. Like a flame began to burn to ashes, the ignorant, blind faith, and superstitious customs which polluted the very vitals of Hindu society. It began to lay anew the true foundation of religion and divine knowledge. This spark brought about revolutionary changes in the religion, social, and educational spheres. Swami Dayanand's findings was, while the world had much progress in material matters, those fundamental laws have been lost sight of, on which the peace and prosperity of mankind is based. He strongly believed that the only way to bring people together in one common bound is for all to go back to the Vedas, and this became his slogan, Back to the Vedas. The Vedas formed the root for the organization. Just as roots draw food to supply plants so they can blossom, so too the Vedas supply the Arya Samaj with the food in the form of knowledge for the Samaj to grow and blossom. In fact, the Vedas provided knowledge for the entire human race. The Arya Samaj movement not only brought about enlightenment in India alone, but also in places beyond the shores of India. The earliest efforts to establish the Arya Samaj movement in Trinidad were made by visiting missionaries. In 1940, there was the presence of Pandit Tiwari and Pandit Hari Prasad. In 1920, Pandit Mehta Jaimini visited Trinidad as a Vedic missionary. In 1934, Pandit Ayodhya Prasad arrived in Trinidad to carry out the work of the Arya Samaj. The Arya Samaj movement was incorporated by Statute Number 43 of 1943 as the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha of Trinidad Incorporated for the purpose of carrying out educational, religious, and charitable work. To this end, not without struggles, 9 Vedic schools were built. Our schools were also mandirs and continue to serve as mandirs. It is where most of our religious functions and celebrations are held. It is at our Vedic schools that weekly religious service is held. We therefore make every effort to keep our places of worship clean, sacred, and pure. The motto of the Arya Samaj is Kirvanto Vishwam Aryam, meaning make the world noble. Swamiji said that Aryans are men of noble qualities, actions, and nature. Thus, the work of the Arya Samaj is to make the whole world noble. It is a society of noble persons propagating the eternal truth of the Vedas to make the life of human beings more purposeful and full of peace and happiness. Swamiji held ignorance to be the root cause of all misery, and so his aim was to convert this world into heaven, moving the causes of misery. His desire was to plant the idea of peace and non-violence in every home, every family, and in the hearts of every man. Swamiji advised people to chant the Gayatri Mantra, practice yoga and meditation. A disciplined life of meditation is the only way to peace and elevation of the soul, to the path of liberation. Now, with that said, I present to you some photos of how we, the Aryans, secure our legacy, which came from India, and now, and how we safeguard our heritage through our school. Sit back and enjoy. And now I invite Kumari Vinita Jogan to recite a poem. She is a member of the Arya Virdal Youth Group. She is an assistant for the Standard 3 class. And today she will be reciting Lines to My Ancestors by Raden Hitukuri.
Namaste everyone and happy Indian Arrival Day. My name is Vinita Jokan and I will be reciting a poem entitled Lines to My Ancestors by Raden Hitukuri. They left behind the world they knew to brave capricious tides, 3 months of wretched misery to cross the oceans wide. From dawn to dusk their footsteps fell amidst the fields of cane, and wielding blades with calloused hands they toiled the hours away. In every single breath I take I hear their sacred songs. Their hearts and mind are synchronized, determined, bold, and strong. Their ancient rites endure with me, immortal over the years. Their fate they brought a precious gift, a blessing to their heirs. For our homeland, Trinbago fair, and all I have today, I honor our Jahajis brave on this their special day. O God, who led our fathers through the waters to new life, may we always be in your grace and guided by your light. Dhanyavad.
Thank you for that wonderful poem, Kumari Vinita Jukan. Because he sang so wonderful the first time, I now invite Sri Surendra Ramata and he would be singing Sare Zamane Pe. Wow, you sang so wonderful. Thank you so much, Sri Surendra Ramata. Now, I invite Sri Liam Jagannath Deni, who eagerly awaits to recite a poem. Thank you for that wonderful poem, Sri Liam Jagannath Deni. Thank you very, very much. Now on our program, I would like to invite our cultural models to entertain us. Do enjoy.
I now introduce to you Dr. Chris Ramprasad. I know her as an active community worker interested in developing literacy and supporting grassroots culture. The world know her as Dr. Chris Ramprasad, an independent scholar, award-winning journalist, author, international development consultant, thought leader, educator, researcher, and content creator. who pioneered the newest creative genre, the multimedia microepic communications, outreach and advocacy to engage with socio-economic and political developmental challenges of the global south and developing world, working to bridge developmental gaps for participation and access. She is closely involved in solution-driven research, analysis, communication, and stakeholder engagement. She was awarded the Trinidad and Tobago National Medal Gold for contributions to the development of women and journalism and is recognized as a pioneer in developmental policy. Blogging for new media by UNESCO, BBC, and partner communication. Initiative, among other accolades, she is a certified UNESCO Heritage and National Geographic educator, Global Woman Tech Maker Ambassador, Google and World Plus Digital Skills Ambassador, and Island Innovators Ambassador. She has worked across the UN, Inter-American, European Union, and ACP regions, Commonwealth and CARICOM system. She was the first sitting journalist editor in the Caribbean and first in her family to complete a PhD. She holds a PhD in humanities, in comprising developmental studies of post-colonial societies, with a diploma in mass communications from the Jawaharlal University India Institute of Mass Communications. She is a fellow of Foreign Press Center of Japan, University of Cambridge, and a Commonwealth Professor Fellow. Her dissertation tracks the immigration, settlement, adoption, and process of society information, since published as Finding a Place. Finding a Place is considered groundbreaking in international context of tracing identity retrieval from distorted colonial knowledge systems. It is now being redeveloped for multimedia, and she is inviting investments for this initiative, so contact her to discuss how you can get involved. Dr. Rampersad is also the author of the highly acclaimed Letityscapes, Landscapes of Fiction, a springboard for engaging all ages, she says, from age 3 to 103, in literature and culture and cultural appreciations beyond the textbook, through live events, tours, aim at cultivating heritage appreciation and to develop Caribbean literary and heritage tourism. She also authored Through the Political Glass Ceiling that captures the ascension of the office of the first woman Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and Eye the Sky and Meet the Sea, the adventures of Mooney Butterfly and Danny Dragonfly, the first of the Caribbean Eco-Cultural Adventures Fable series. She has a long experience in multilateral relations and served as a president of the UNESCO Education Commission as an independent member of the UNESCO Intergovernmental Committee on Intangible Cultural Heritage. She was the first UNESCO ICH educator facilitator for the English-speaking Caribbean and was actively involved in local to international stakeholder engagement processes that significantly augmented the Caribbean presence of UNESCO list. World Heritage Sites for Jamaica, Antigua, and Barbuda, reggae on the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Registry, and enlisting of the Port of Spain, Nassau Kingston as UNESCO Creative Sites. She has trained, guided, mentored, and worked with many of the diverse cultural communities of the Caribbean, from indigenous people to the more recent immigrants or recent migrant communities. Diverting innovative users responsive mechanism for communicating culture-centered development for Latin America and the Caribbean, small islands, the global south and the developing world. You can find out more on her social media channels. See www.chrisrampasad.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Let's now invite our very precious and wonderful Dr. Chris Rampasad.
The superpower is thinking. Someone asked me to complete the sentence I wanted to be, and I am, I return wholeheartedly. The secret tools, research. The weapons of mass destruction, multimedia, words, images, music, visual mapping, graphics, sound, video. From the cross currents of mass culture, mass communications, mass education, she traverses 5 continents and 3 realms. Her quest? Find a place where knowledge lives, even if we all cease to be. She'll use the important dark forces who have a warrant out for her arrest on the crime of reading. Mystical beings of science and science with potent powers to heal, befriend her. Confronted walls of prejudice and pollution, racism, vitriol and violence, turmoil and terrorism, she defies the poet's claims. No man is an island, but woman is. Spokesperson for woman, the empowered kind. I land in the wars of the world. Choose us or them, heart or mind. She meanders secretive and treacherous contortions in her heart's arteries to unearth historical distortions. Inspired by Pa's dream stories, with Ma as her muse, the wealth is your mind. She sets out on a perilous journey in search of the magical flower with the power to restore sight to the world, and invents a new creative genre, the multimedia micro-epic of the Anthropocene. Split into continents, cut up in parts, divided in vain, says the laureate, long before the medical probes find the evidence. My umbilical motherland. One is in the east and one is in the west. Buried, hidden, invisible, unknown, unseen. Asymptomatic, separated from mother continent. I am an island, the independent kind. An Amazonian, descendant of the first Americanas, ancestors of ancient Pacific Atlantic crisscrossings of discovery long before Kon-Tiki. I have never been able to contemplate the history of my islands as the isolated story of independence or colonization or even migration, not the recent migrations that brought most of us here, nor even the prehistoric ones. I have pored over maps and drew the invisible line that connects South American rivers and topography with our islands, and looked at biological studies of our flora and fauna, and geological and anthropological and archaeological reports, and even without that, knowing their primordial linkages which we have been taught to forget. To move beyond the self-derision and self-deprecation and discover our ugliness too, and our beauty too, as I trace the imaginary line that connects us, island and continent. This is a liturgy, a praise to all who came before, and on whose shoulders we stand and are both. Heritage in itself is a voyage of discovery. The occasion we are celebrating this month, Indian Heritage Month, of the modern wave of migration that brought a stream of laborers from India to the Western Hemisphere, is one such voyage of discovery, of daring. When we celebrate arrival, we celebrate the bravery of crossing over to the unknown, We celebrate the spirit of triumph over adversity. We celebrate the founders and the builders of a society. The journey to reclaiming his place in the world for migrant Indians and his descendants begin from the time he begins to bond with other immigrants on the ship. They sing the first line of a verse from the Ramayana on the treacherous seas. That line is picked up by the man sitting next to him, and the woman next to that man, and the child on the woman's lap. And in these elements of internalized culture and tradition that are part of the cargo of those immigrant ships, borne thousands of miles across the oceans and deposited in a new place to seed and to take root. Let's imagine what it might have been in the beginning when our ancestors set foot on these shores. In the beginning, it would have begun with one time-expired Indian. From nearby trees, he cuts posts to hold together his one-room house, with carrot leaves for a roof and bamboo and grass pasted over with mud, packed and hardened to form the walls of his home. Its dirt floor he leaps with his hands using cow dung and water mixed into a paste. It is cool underfoot and helps keep off the insects. Home is the axis of his trek to and from the fields. His bare callous feet hardened, its skin peeling white and dried, stamped down towering grasses to reveal a pathway that would one day become a roadway that may even carry his name. Suknanan, Ramlochan, Visasa, Sukub, and Wari or Ramaitres. A road is named. With time, others acquire similar plots, set up huts, and plant the fields next to him. He takes one as his wife. With others around them, they grow families. A village is born. They create an outdoor shrine under a mango or peepal tree or immortal tree. The shrine becomes the place where they teach the young their ancestral language, religion, culture, beliefs, and practices. It becomes their meeting place, not only to pray, but to exchange ideas, to expound philosophies about existence, the world, religion, the day in the fields, the weather, problems of survival, plans for their future, their place in this new place. It becomes the center of social transformation. A community takes root. They meet with other groups at each other's shrines, and the discussions broaden as they recognize common interests and common concerns. They develop networks, first to sing bhajans and Ramayana in villages where such groups do not exist, or to share instruments and music and musicians, then to teach others bhajan singing, Ramayana recitation, dance and language, and to discuss social and political concerns. Nationalism blossoms. They organize cultural competitions and contests like Chautal singing competitions around holy time and Jal Ramayana competitions near Diwali time and Ramlila. Singers and dancers and musicians of one village try to outdo the other. These and other events would evolve into district and then one day national festivals, Ramlila and Diwali and Holi. Religion, culture, and community combine in a powerful catalyst to demand reform of social conditions and for political recognition. Recognition of their contribution to the place not as temporary contract workers, but as citizens who have peopled this earth and this sea and this sky with their gods and goddesses, whose navel strings are buried in this land, and who have buried the navel strings of their children in sacred spots on land they have watered with tears and nourished with sweat and sustained with humiliation and pain and degradation, who have planted in this land their faith and hopes and dreams, loftily fluttering like colorful jandies in the wind. The process I outlined of society formation there has been part of my studies in finding a place, and he subsequently documented too in multiple choice. It gathers together information about our role in forming a society that is generally erased in discussion and in the written and educational forms of documentation of the culture. For instance, I see you, the Arya Samaj movement, is celebrating what you call your 70th anniversary in education. But those 70 years only mark the beginning of registering your formal institution. In giving emphasis to the date of formal registration and recognition and acknowledgement from the colonial processes, we are in effect erasing the history of struggle and endeavor that predates all of that, all that went before the point of registration. It erases the pioneering effort, the charity, the freely giving of time and energy of men and women in the communities to keep a culture alive. It erases what we call oral cultural processes, the informal processes of passing knowledge from one generation to the next. And it also discounts the value of that tradition and heritage of passing knowledge, of transmitting knowledge from one generation to the next. And so it also erases from our history books and our heritage the roots and value of the essence of our cultures. This has been the focus of my studies. When we take into consideration the oral, undocumented, intangible forms of knowledge transmission, the way we pass on knowledge from one generation to the next, it changes radically the picture of our place in development. It changes our understanding and appreciation of each other and of other groups in the society and their understanding of us. And this has been the work in finding a place. So in finding a place, while mapping the history and heritage from written sources, some very rare and little known newspapers and magazines, I also incorporated and traced how the early settlers applied and utilized the culture in their memory before they accessed the written knowledge, the songs and dances and rituals and practices, habits and beliefs, to establish themselves and settle in the society as described earlier. So what you would see here are some of the materials I encountered in the images that you see here. For example, on the Arya Samaj movement in Trinidad and Tobago. The Arya Pratinidhi Sabha recognized its origins in 1910 with the arrival of the first Aryan missionaries as funded by Permanent, and as I pointed out earlier, with the registering of its official organization in the 1940s. But finding a place takes this back much earlier, with actions that were occurring unrecognized and undocumented at community level, because at that time our community were very much invisible from the mainstream. And this is manifested in the documentation that came later, as in the little-known newspapers and literary magazines. For example, in their representation and description of the visit of the Vedic missionary Pandya, which your history would tell you set the stage for formalizing education and community outreach among your groups. What was exciting and interesting to see was the way all groups, religions and races participated in each other's activities and worked together to strengthen the movement towards independence. Much of this working together we have seen have been eroded since independence. And of course, we know what caused that erosion: the politics and the scramble for constituency. It shows this in finding a place that would not only among Hindus but also among Muslims and other groups, the rich intercultural exchange and fermentation that was occurring in villages. This is being wiped out by the tellings and race-based interpretations of our history and culture, and continue to be repeated and replicated in the documented forms. So how well do we know our history? How well do you know our history? You've seen from all this evidence I'm showing you about the early Arya Samaj movement in Trinidad. I've done the same for the Presbyterian and Muslims as well, of what was happening in the villages within and among these groups and our communities. If we do not know our history, how can you teach it? In the same way, it traces the process of intercultural development, the interactions of different denominations, the way Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and others work together to build a society. So there's also the evidence from the Christians, Presbyterians, Muslims, other Hindu groups treated in finding a place. I applied this knowledge to analyzing the political environment when I was working on Through the Political Glass Ceiling, mapping the pathway to the political office of the first woman Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And what I found, the picture that surfaced became very different to what we have been conditioned to believe about our Westminster adopted political system, the two-party system. Because we feel that the needs and the wants and what needs to be done and what has to be done is sometimes so overwhelming, we end up falling back into taking and borrowing and applying these misfit forms, misfit information that doesn't resound with the cultural relevance that we need for education of our children. So what we need, it means investing in resources, using our same resources, but redirected more wisely to build capacity to develop infrastructure. And this development should begin from preschool. Our children are already tech savvy by the age of 4. So why are we waiting until age 14 to introduce them to IT? They are navigating social media by ages 3, 4, and 5. So why are we not integrating social media skills into their education? So, and this is where I'm making a link between what's happening in the informal environment and what's happening in the formal environment. The formal environment, formal education environment, is very slow and sluggish in keeping up, just as it was in terms of acknowledging and recognizing what was happening in our communities and villages in the informal system. We see the sluggishness also in terms of general education progress. We have to still retrieve the knowledge and information through research and digitize. And it places us way behind the digital age. And as we panic, what are we doing? We are now copycatting wholesale, transferring all the prejudices and biases that come with media, ingrained, internalized in how media presents information and educational material developed for and from other societies. We face the danger of going into the digital age with this deficit and imbalance in knowledge systems, and culture and our heritage. Unless we retrieve and actively participate, we will not just lose ground, we will lose valuable information, and what we are losing is that link that will enable us to connect our present and our past. In the same way, we have lost the link with colonization and with utilizing colonial interpretations of ourselves and our history and the history of our culture. We are now further distancing ourselves from understanding and retrieving that knowledge. So what can we do? Research, publication, teacher retraining, utilizing youth for peer development. I have been doing in the background some of that work, finding a place now in the process of being digitized, and a digitized form of finding a place is not a PDF. It would bring alive through visual, audio, images, the society I painted for you when I started my presentation. So digitization is not just turning things into PDF. When we talk about making it culturally relevant for intercultural education, it is ensuring that the images that are presented are properly presented. They do not reflect, they do not contain biases and prejudices that are transmitted unknown to us, to the people that we teach. So some of these experiments I would give you pretty close. So yes, digitization of finding a place and finalization of the digitization of multiple choice, which is the post-independent period and the communities and what was happening in there for release and for use by educators. Secondly, I have been also developing a new learning framework that would engage with and amalgamate and integrate our approach to arts and sciences. We have tended to adopt that colonial model in which the sciences and the arts are separated, and in separating the sciences and the arts, of course, you also distance the oral culture and that learning. So I've, in my National Geographic capstone, begun to develop a new learning framework that can amalgamate the science and arts education and bring out that what could be relevant for intercultural education. And this is based on examination. It's a blended learning model that integrates how National Geographic does its scientific education and how UNESCO does its cultural education. So amalgamating those both into what I call story science. Another element is what I launched at Commonwealth Day at the height of COVID. A new literary genre called the multimedia microepic, where I take the classical epic and adapt it for social media, short form social media, for digital media. So whereas we think that digital education, we've been dumbing down and throwing a set of boring PDFs at children with ridiculous mascots and in PowerPoint presentations, I created the multimedia microepic as a form to amalgamate all the very complex elements of the classical epic for social media.
I wish you happy reflections on this day and look forward to working together to forge a pathway forward. I thank you.
Chalo habari sat haguria chalo habari sat kalakata se awe jahaz abagala kali karo kalakata se awe jahaz abagala kali karo kalakata se awe jahaz just follow me and you will see you and me, it's so good to be footloose and free. I wander around through countries, seaside and town. Come with me, come on, see what's still to be born. The world is my playground, the wind is my song. I believe in truth, love and freedom. I visit all but stay with none for long.
Dr. Ramprasad, we will take to heart that wonderful message you left with us today. Thank you. Because he sang so wonderful the first time, I now invite Sri Surendra Ramata and he would be singing Sare Zamane Pe.
Hey! सारे जमाने पे मौसम सुहाने पे इस दिल दीवाने पे वीरानी सी थी चाहे आप आए बाहर आई हो सारे जमाने पे मौसम सुहाने पे इस दिल दीवाने पे वीरानी सी थी चाहे आप आए बाहर आई हो हे आपका ही था सबको इंतजार आपका ही था सबको इंतजार आपके लिए सबके बेकरार हवाएं घटाए फिजाए बागों में फूलों में झूलों ने ले चूम के अंदर आए अब आए बाहर आई हो सारे जमाने पे मौसम सुहाने पे इस दिल दीवाने पे वीरानी सी थी चाहे अब आए बाहर आई हो
Wow, you sang so wonderful. Thank you so much, Sri Surendra Ramata. And now I invite Sri Liam Jagannath Deni, who eagerly awaits to recite a poem.
Nana came on the hot rosa, the wind on the attack. The bird, curtain and boot. and they even cook roti. I love my history because it makes me. Happy and Indian Unrivaled Day. Enjoy it in every way. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful poem, Sriliyam Jagannadhani. Thank you very, very much. Next on the program is a dance. This item would be done by young and vibrant Shiva Gangaram.
இது கண்ணன் வரும் பொழுதல்லவா ஒரு முறை உனது திருமுகம் பார்த்தால் விடை பெறும் உயிரல்லவா மார்கழி திங்கள் அல்லவா மதி கொஞ்சம் நாள் அல்லவா இது கண்ணன் வரும் பொழுதல்லவா ஒரு முறை உனது திருமுகம் பார்த்தால் விடை பெறும் உயிரல்லவா ஒரு முறை உனது திருமுகம் பார்த்தால் விடை பெறும் உயிரல்லவா வருவாய் தலைவா வாழ்வே வெறும் கனவா மார்கழி திங்கள் அல்லவா மதி கொஞ்சம் நாள் அல்லவா இது கண்ணன் வரும் பொழுதல்லவா
Tajam tajam tagajam.
என் மனம் நீ அறிந்தாயோ
Tom tom tom. Mabasani da ba ma sa 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 ma 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 da 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 sa sa ma tom tom tom. Mabasani da ba ma sa 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 ma 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 da 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 sa sa ma tarigir jenu tagaditillana tagadi. Tarigir ditillana tagadi. Tarigir jenu tadimita tarigida tom tom tom. Mabasani da ba ma sa ni da. Anganama Mauli Mani Tingalase Charushile Nagavalli Manonmani Ramanathan Tedum Bale Manikya Vasagar Moliga Nalgi Devi Manikya Vasagar Moliga Nalgi Devi Ilangovadigal Silambu Nalgi Tamizhagamagayum Sringaranadini Palamudir Konjalin Cholayai Tamizhagamagayum Sringaranadini Palamudir Konjalin Cholayai.
What an amazing performance!
Namaste, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and our online viewing community. On behalf of the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. Expressing gratitude to everyone for making this Indian Arrival Day program is of utmost importance. Firstly, I would like to thank the innovative and hard-working committee for putting this program together. It was indeed well organized and presented. Thank you to all members from the Virdal for their commitment and continuous support. Thank you to Srimati Sian Santoki for the lovely welcome message in the beginning of our program today. Srimati Sian, I am sure you have enlightened our audience. Thank you to Sri Surendra Ramuta for the rendition of those beautiful songs. We were really blessed to listen to your melodious voice. Thank you to Kumari Patricia Balgobin Singh for giving the history of the Arya Samaj to our fellow Samajas and wider audience. Your heart was definitely in your presentation. What a wonderful poem by Kumari Vanita Jokan. We say thank you. Not forgetting our other poet, Liam Denny, we say a heartfelt thank you for your recitation as well. Special thank you to our featured speaker, Dr. Chris Rampasad, for gracing us with her time. Dr. Rampasad, we were very moved by your message. We thank you for your words. Your presentation was very inspiring to all, be it young or old. We say thank you once more. Thank you to Sri Shiva Gangaram for that stunning dance performance. Thank you to Pandit Jiwan Singh for always giving us his blessings and reciting those special mantras. Please forgive me if I have omitted anyone. It was not intentional. I say thank you on behalf of the organization. Namaste.
Namaste. As we come to the end of our Indian Arrival Day program, I ask you kindly to assume an attitude of prayer and join with us in our closing mantras. Let us chant Om 3 times. Om. Om. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Om Yau Shanti Rantariksham Shanti Prithvi Shanti Rapa Shanti Roshadheya Shanti Vanaspateya Shantir Vishvedeva Shantir Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shanti Reva Shanti Sama Shanti Redhi. May there be peace in the heavenly regions. May there be peace in the atmosphere. May peace reign on earth. May the waters be soothing, and may the medicinal herbs be chaste. May the plants be the source of peace to all. May all enlightened person bring peace to us. May the Vedas spread peace throughout. May all other objects give us peace, and may peace even bring peace, and may that peace come to us forever. May there be peace, peace, peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste.
On behalf of the President and the Executive of the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha of Trinidad, we would all like to wish you a very happy Indian Arrival Day. Namaste.